suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca, what if I told you that most of the stress, anxiety, and mental exhaustion you feel right now isn't caused by your problems, but by your thinking about them? The endless replaying of conversations, the overanalyzing of decisions you've already made, the mental noise that keeps you awake at night, even when nothing is actually happening. Overthinking doesn't just steal your peace, it quietly steals your confidence, your focus, and your momentum in life. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They faced exile, loss, war, and uncertainty, yet they mastered the art of a calm, disciplined mind. And they did it without therapy apps, motivational speeches, or complicated systems. Just simple, brutally effective mental practices. In this video, I'm going to share 8 Stoic practices that can shut down overthinking almost instantly, not in theory, but in real life. These are tools you can use in the middle of anxiety, during self-doubt, or when your mind feels out of control. But here's the key. The final practice ties everything together, and most people never make it that far. If you stay until the end, you won't just understand Stoicism, you'll feel the difference in how your mind operates. So take a breath. Stay with me. Your mind is about to get quieter. Number 1, negative visualization, premeditatio malorum. Negative visualization sounds dark at first, almost pessimistic. Your mind might resist it immediately. Why would you deliberately imagine things going wrong? Why would you walk into the very scenarios you're trying to avoid? But this is where the Stoics were radically different from the anxious mind. They understood something you're still learning. What you refuse to face internally will haunt you externally. What you rehearse calmly loses its power to disturb you. The Latin phrase premeditatio malorum simply means the premeditation of evils. And no, it's not about obsessing over catastrophe. It's about neutralizing fear by bringing it into the light on your terms. Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." That's the secret. You're not summoning disaster, you're stripping it of surprise. Overthinking feeds on uncertainty. It multiplies in the dark. But when you sit down and say, "Fine, let's look at the worst that could reasonably happen," something unexpected occurs. The monster shrinks. Overthinking thrives on vagueness. It whispers, "What if everything falls apart?" But it never defines what everything means. So define it calmly. Sit with a notebook. Ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid will happen? Be precise. Name it clearly. Write it down in blunt language. Then go further. If that happens, then what? And then what? Keep going until you reach the actual bottom. You'll often discover that the end of your mental spiral is not annihilation. It's discomfort, embarrassment, adjustment, temporary pain, not extinction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Today I escaped anxiety," or "No, I discarded it because it was within me." That's what you're doing here. You're discarding illusion. When you voluntarily imagine difficulty, you are stepping into the arena mentally instead of pacing outside it. And your nervous system begins to settle because it realizes, this is survivable. Try this as a daily exercise. Spend 5 minutes in deliberate contemplation of loss or inconvenience. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just factually. Imagine something you value being removed. Imagine plans changing. Imagine criticism arriving. Then say to yourself slowly, "If this happens, I will respond with reason." Feel the words. Let your breathing stay steady. Notice the initial spike of resistance. Stay anyway. The first minute may feel uncomfortable. The second will feel steadier. By the third, your body adapts. That adaptation is resilience forming in real time. The goal is not to become cold. It is to become prepared. Epictetus put it plainly. When you kiss your child, say to yourself that you only kiss a human being. He wasn't being morbid. He was reminding you of impermanence. Everything you cling to is temporary. Everything you fear losing is already on borrowed time. When you accept that deeply, not intellectually but emotionally, you stop bargaining with reality, and overthinking loses its fuel. Your mind overthinks because it is trying to protect you from shock. It wants to prevent pain. but it does so chaotically, replaying scenes, exaggerating outcomes, inventing humiliations. Negative visualization takes that same protective instinct and disciplines it. You choose the scenario, you choose the frame, you choose the tone. You walk through it calmly instead of being ambushed by it at 2 a.m. Here's another practice. When you notice yourself spiraling, pause and ask, what is the worst-case scenario realistically? Not theatrically, not apocalyptic, realistically. Then immediately ask, could I endure that? The honest answer almost always is yes. Not comfortably, not joyfully, but you could endure it. Remind yourself of that. I could endure this. Repeat it until your pulse slows. Endurance is power. The Stoics weren't obsessed with comfort. They were obsessed with strength of character. There's something almost paradoxical here. The more you accept that things can go wrong, the less anxious you feel about them going wrong. Resistance breeds tension. Acceptance breeds clarity. When you accept that outcomes are not fully in your control, you shift your attention back to what is, your judgment, your response, your integrity. That shift alone silences mental noise. And let's go deeper. Negative visualization also sharpens gratitude. When you imagine losing something, even briefly, you feel its value more vividly. You stop taking it for granted. That quiet appreciation grounds you in the present. Overthinking drags you into imaginary futures. Gratitude anchors you now. The two cannot dominate your mind at the same time. So here's a structured method you can adopt starting today. First, identify one recurring worry. Only one. Write it at the top of a page. Second, describe the feared outcome in concrete terms. Third, outline how you would respond if it happened, not emotionally but practically. What steps would you take? Who would you become in that moment? Fourth, close your eyes and visualize yourself handling it with composure. See yourself steady. Hear your voice calm. Feel your breathing slow. Stay in that mental scene for 2 full minutes. Then open your eyes and return to your day. Do this consistently and you'll notice something remarkable. The same thought that used to hijack your mood will feel flatter, less charged, less urgent, because you've already faced it. You've already survived it in rehearsal. Seneca advised practicing poverty occasionally, not because he wanted deprivation, but because he wanted freedom from fear of deprivation. You can apply that philosophy psychologically. Practice discomfort in your imagination so you are not enslaved by the fear of it. The mind relaxes when it knows it has contingency plans. But be disciplined here. This is not rumination. It is structured contemplation. There is a difference. Rumination loops endlessly without resolution. Negative visualization moves toward acceptance and preparedness. Once you've walked through the scenario and defined your response, you stop. You don't replay it all day. You close the exercise intentionally. Say to yourself, I have prepared. That is enough. Overthinking often stems from the illusion that you must guarantee a perfect outcome. The Stoics rejected that entirely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That line is your anchor. You are responsible for your effort and your character, not the final result. When you internalize that, catastrophic thinking softens, because you realize the only true failure would be losing your composure, and you don't have to. Right now, you can begin building this habit. When your mind starts racing, don't push the thought away. Turn toward it. Say, let's examine you. Define it, explore it, finish it. Then breathe and let it dissolve. Each time you do this, you weaken the reflex of panic and strengthen the reflex of reason. Negative visualization is not about expecting the worst. It's about being unafraid of it. That's a profound difference. When you are no longer terrified of potential outcomes, your mind becomes quieter, cleaner, more focused. You act instead of obsess. You prepare instead of catastrophize. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, overthinking loses its grip on you, because you have already looked at what you feared, and you remain standing. Number 2, dichotomy of control. Overthinking begins where control ends. You start replaying conversations, forecasting disasters, dissecting possibilities like you're trying to outmaneuver the universe itself. And the more you try to mentally grip what isn't yours to grip, the more anxious you feel. The Stoics cut through this noise with something almost brutally simple, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus opened his Enchiridion with it for a reason. Some things are up to us and some things are not. That's it. That's the blade, clean, sharp, relentless. If you actually apply it, not admire it, not quote it, but apply it, you can dismantle overthinking at the root. You overthink because you blur the categories. You treat outcomes as controllable. You treat other people's opinions as negotiable. You treat the past as editable. And when reality refuses to cooperate, your mind spins harder. The Stoics would tell you to stop arguing with what never belonged to you in the first place. Your thoughts, your judgments, your actions, those are yours. Everything else, weather, noise, external. Say it clearly to yourself: I control my effort. I do not control the result. Repeat that until it sinks in. Because the result is what usually hijacks you. You obsess over how things will turn out. You script reactions that haven't happened. You try to secure certainty where none exists. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Not comfort, strength. Strength comes from narrowing your focus to your own agency and refusing to wander beyond it. Here, that's what you need to start doing immediately. When you feel your thoughts spiraling, pause and draw an invisible line. On one side, place what you can directly influence right now: your preparation, your attitude, your next step. On the other side, place everything else: timing, reception, randomness, other people's moods. Be ruthless about it. If it's not fully yours, it goes to the second column. This mental sorting exercise sounds simple, almost too simple, but it cuts the fuel line to overthinking. Because once something lands in the not mine category, your job is to release it. And yes, release means release. Not revisit in 10 minutes, not circle back at midnight. Release. Overthinking thrives on the illusion that more analysis equals more control. It doesn't. It usually equals more agitation. Seneca warned, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Notice that. In imagination, your mind creates scenarios and then reacts emotionally to its own inventions. The dichotomy of control interrupts that cycle. It forces you to ask, is this thought about something I can act on right now? If the answer is no, then you practice letting it pass without engagement. This will feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind wants to chew on uncertainty like it's a problem to solve. But not every uncertainty is a puzzle. Some are simply conditions. Train yourself to distinguish between preparation and rumination. Preparation is active and limited. Rumination is circular and endless. One leads to movement. The other leads to paralysis. Try this exercise daily. Set a 5-minute control audit. Sit down with a notebook. Write down everything that's currently occupying your mental space, all of it. Then go through each item and mark it with either a C for controllable or an N for not controllable. Be honest. If you cannot directly alter it through your own behavior today, it's an N once you've labeled them. Commit to acting only on the C items. The N items. You practice indifference toward them, not apathy, but disciplined non-attachment. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." That's your operating system. There's a hidden freedom here. When you truly internalize the dichotomy of control, you stop taking everything personally. Outcomes are not verdicts on your worth. Reactions from others are not mirrors of your value. They are external events, separate from you. You become less fragile because your identity is no longer entangled with what you cannot command. Overthinking often disguises itself as responsibility. You tell yourself you're just being thorough, just being careful, but look closely. Are you trying to manage perception? Are you trying to guarantee approval? Are you trying to eliminate risk entirely? Those are all external, and chasing them is like trying to sculpt water. It won't hold. Instead, redirect that energy inward. Focus intensely on your character, your discipline, your integrity. Those are always within reach. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That line dismantles overanalysis instantly. Stop theorizing outcomes. Start embodying principles. If you act with clarity and effort, you've fulfilled your role. The rest unfolds as it will. Another practice: when you catch yourself spiraling, ask one sharp question. What is the next right action within my control? Not the next 10 moves, not the full blueprint, just the next right action. Then do it. Overthinking hates action. Action collapses hypothetical futures into concrete movement. Even small movement counts, especially small movement. It grounds you in agency. You also need to watch your language. Listen to how often you say, "What if?" That phrase is the anthem of overthinking. Replace it with "even if." Even if things don't go as planned, I will respond with composure. Even if I'm misunderstood, I will maintain integrity. Even if outcomes shift, I will adapt. See the difference. What if seeks to control the uncontrollable. Even if prepares you to govern yourself regardless. This is not about emotional numbness. It's about strategic focus. When you narrow your concern to what you can influence, your mental bandwidth expands. Anxiety decreases because you're no longer fighting the entire universe, just refining your own conduct. And that is manageable, that is actionable, that is empowering. You must practice this daily, not just when overwhelmed. Build the reflex before the storm. Throughout your day, casually sort events into the two categories. Traffic, not yours; your reaction, yours; delays, not yours; your patience, yours; opinions, not yours; your standards, yours. This repetition wires the distinction deeper into your thinking patterns. Eventually, something subtle shifts. You stop chasing total certainty. You stop negotiating with reality. You do your part fully, then you let go cleanly. And when you let go cleanly, your mind quiets. Not because everything is resolved, but because you've stopped gripping what was never yours to hold. Overthinking feeds on excess responsibility for external outcomes. The dichotomy of control removes that excess. It trims your focus down to its essential core. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions. Nothing more, nothing less. So take this seriously. Don't just nod along. Practice the audit. Draw the line, ask the sharp question. Replace "what if" with "even if." Memorize Epictetus' opening truth and repeat it until it becomes instinct. Some things are up to me. Some things are not. And when you truly live that distinction, you'll notice something remarkable. Your mind stops pacing in circles. It starts moving forward. Number 3, voluntary discomfort. Overthinking feeds on comfort. It thrives in padded rooms and predictable routines. When everything around you is soft, your mind becomes hypersensitive. A minor uncertainty feels enormous. A small risk feels catastrophic. The Stoics understood this, which is why they practiced voluntary discomfort on purpose. Not because they enjoyed suffering, not because they were trying to prove something, but because discomfort shrinks imaginary fears. And when imaginary fears shrink, overthinking loses its fuel. You overthink because your mind is trying to protect you. It scans for threats. It anticipates loss. It rehearses disasters, but most of what it rehearses will never happen. Seneca put it bluntly, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Read that slowly. Most of your distress is fictional. Voluntary discomfort drags you out of fiction and back into the physical world. It grounds you. It reminds you that you are stronger than your projections. When you deliberately choose mild hardship, you retrain your nervous system. You show it that discomfort is not danger. That tension is not tragedy. That unease does not equal collapse. And once your body learns this lesson, your thoughts begin to calm down. Because overthinking is often just the mind's attempt to avoid discomfort. So if you stop avoiding it, if you walk toward it instead, your mind stops panicking. Start small, that's important. This is not about dramatic gestures, it's about controlled friction. Take a cold shower for 30 seconds. Sit with hunger for a little longer before eating. Wake up earlier than you want to. Remove a convenience you usually rely on. Stay in silence without reaching for distraction. When the discomfort shows up, don't rush to escape it. Stay. Breathe slowly. Notice the urge to quit. And don't obey it immediately. You are building tolerance. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That line isn't about humiliation. It's about becoming immune to mild discomfort, social, physical, emotional. If you can tolerate small stings, your mind stops spinning catastrophic narratives. You begin to think, if I can handle this, I can handle that. Confidence grows not from comfort, but from endured strain. Overthinking thrives in the gap between what you fear and what you've actually tested. Voluntary discomfort closes that gap. It converts what if into so what. You stop dramatizing because you've practiced enduring. You've rehearsed resilience. You've tasted difficulty in small doses on your terms. That changes your posture toward uncertainty. There's a powerful psychological shift that happens when you choose discomfort instead of being forced into it. Choice creates strength. When hardship is imposed, you feel attacked. When hardship is selected, you feel disciplined. And discipline quiets mental chaos. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Voluntary discomfort is a direct application of that principle. You can't control everything that happens, but you can control how much comfort you require to feel okay. Try this exercise. Once a day, do one thing that makes you slightly uncomfortable, and before you begin, say to yourself, this is training. Frame it intentionally. While you're in it, observe your thoughts. Watch how quickly your mind starts negotiating escape. This is pointless. This is unnecessary. I don't need this. Smile at those thoughts. Let them pass. Stay anyway. When it ends, reflect. Did you survive? Of course you did. That reflection rewires your expectations. Another practice, negative visualization. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, imagining possible setbacks in advance. Sit quietly and picture a difficulty you fear. Don't dramatize it wildly, just see it clearly. Then imagine yourself responding with composure. Imagine staying steady. Feel the discomfort in your body without flinching. This rehearsal strips away shock. When your mind has already visited a feared scenario, it loses its mystery. And mystery is what makes overthinking spiral. Understand this. Overthinking is often just resistance to feeling. If you train yourself to feel discomfort without reacting impulsively, your thoughts don't need to overcompensate. You become less fragile internally. You stop treating mild anxiety as a 5-alarm fire. You stop analyzing every possible angle because you trust your ability to adapt. And trust is the key. Voluntary discomfort builds self-trust. When you consistently prove to yourself that you can endure inconvenience, awkwardness, or uncertainty, your inner dialogue changes. It becomes steadier, less frantic, more grounded. Instead of asking, what if this goes wrong? You begin to say, if it does, I'll handle it. That subtle shift is powerful. It cuts overthinking at the root. Don't misunderstand this practice. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about strengthening yourself. There's a difference. You are not trying to suffer more. You are trying to need less. The less you need perfect conditions to remain calm, the less your mind scrambles to control everything. You start releasing the illusion that constant comfort equals safety. Here's another exercise. Delay gratification intentionally. When you want to check your phone, wait 5 minutes. When you want to respond immediately, pause. When you crave distraction, sit still for a moment instead. Feel the itch. Don't scratch it instantly. This builds impulse control. And impulse control reduces mental noise, because overthinking is often just a loop of unchecked impulses chasing certainty. Musonius Rufus, another Stoic teacher, encouraged practicing hardship to prepare the soul. He believed that comfort makes people soft, and softness makes them anxious. When you avoid all friction, even minor stress feels unbearable. But when you expose yourself gradually to discomfort, you normalize it. You stop interpreting it as threat. And your thoughts calm down accordingly. There will be resistance. Your mind will argue that this is unnecessary, that you could simply think your way out of overthinking, but you can't outthink a nervous system that hasn't been trained. Calm thinking requires a resilient body, and resilience is physical as much as mental, so step into small challenges daily. Not recklessly, not dramatically, quietly, consistently. Treat it like brushing your teeth. Non-negotiable, ordinary, powerful. Let the cold water hit your skin and stay present. Let silence stretch longer than is comfortable. Let effort linger. And as you endure these controlled discomforts, notice how your tolerance expands. Overthinking diminishes when your threshold for discomfort rises. That's the equation. Raise the threshold, lower the noise. You are capable of far more than your anxious mind suggests, but you have to prove it to yourself. Not through grand gestures, through steady practice, through repeated exposure, through deliberate friction. And once you do, something shifts. The next time your thoughts start spiraling, there's a new voice underneath them. Quieter, firmer. It says, "I've handled worse." That voice doesn't shout, it doesn't panic, it stands. Cultivate that voice. Voluntary discomfort is not about hardship for its own sake. It's about freedom. Freedom from fragility, freedom from excessive analysis, freedom from the constant need to feel safe before you act. Train yourself. Step into mild discomfort today. Stay with it. Breathe through it. Learn from it. Let it toughen your spirit without hardening your heart. And watch how quickly your mind stops trying to protect someone who no longer needs so much protection. Number 4, present moment focus. Overthinking feeds on time travel. It drags you backward into what should have been said, what could have been done, what might have changed everything. Then it hurls you forward into imagined futures that haven't happened and may never happen. The Stoics understood this pattern deeply. They saw how the mind creates unnecessary suffering by wandering beyond the only place where you have agency, the present moment. When you anchor yourself here, right now, overthinking loses oxygen. It cannot survive without past and future to feed on. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not manage the future, not rewrite the past." Confine yourself to the present. That word confine is deliberate. It implies discipline. It suggests boundaries. Your mind will try to escape, to roam, to analyze endlessly. You must gently but firmly bring it back, again and again and again. This is not passive. It is an active practice of mental governance. Overthinking feels productive, but it is usually just repetitive motion. The same thoughts circling, the same doubts replaying, the same scenarios rehearsed with different dialogue. And the more you entertain them, the more real they feel. But here's the truth the Stoics knew. You cannot act in the past and you cannot act in the future. You can only act now. So train yourself to return to now as if your clarity depends on it, because it does. Start with your senses. This is the simplest doorway back to the present. When you notice your mind spiraling, pause. Take one slow breath in through your nose and a longer breath out through your mouth. Feel the air move. Then identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This isn't trivial. It interrupts the mental loop and pulls you into your body. Overthinking is abstract. The present is concrete. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." What is in your power right now? Not the outcome, not someone else's opinion, not a hypothetical consequence. What is in your control in this exact moment? Your posture, your breathing, your next word, your next small action. Shrink your focus until it fits inside your hands. When the mind wants to solve everything at once, refuse. Choose the next step only. You don't eliminate overthinking by solving every possibility. You eliminate it by narrowing your attention to what must be done now. Ask yourself one direct question. What is required of me in this moment? Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, often the answer is simple, and simplicity cuts through mental noise. There is also power in labeling your thoughts. When your mind begins to spiral, say quietly to yourself, planning, or worrying, or replaying. By naming the mental activity, you create distance from it. You remind yourself that thoughts are events in the mind, not commands you must obey. Seneca warned about suffering more in imagination than in reality. When you label a thought as imagination, you weaken its grip. But you must practice this deliberately. Don't wait until you're overwhelmed. Build present moment awareness daily. Set a timer for 5 minutes and focus only on your breath. When your attention drifts, and it will, gently bring it back. No frustration, no judgment, just return. This repetition is how you strengthen attention. Think of it as mental weight training. Each return builds endurance. Another exercise, single tasking. Choose one activity each day and do it without distraction. No multitasking, no background noise, no checking, just complete attention on one task from beginning to end. When your mind wanders, notice it and redirect. This trains depth over diffusion. Overthinking thrives on scattered attention. Presence thrives on focus. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life." That isn't dramatic, it's clarifying. When you treat this moment as significant, you give it weight. You stop rushing through it mentally. You stop postponing your engagement. You show up fully. And when you are fully engaged, there is no room left for endless rumination. Understand this clearly. The present moment is not small. It contains everything you can influence. The Stoics didn't ignore the future. They prepared for it by mastering the now. When you focus on this breath, this action, this decision, you are shaping your future indirectly but effectively. Worrying about it directly rarely improves it. You might notice resistance. The mind enjoys wandering. It feels stimulating to analyze endlessly. Let that urge exist without indulging it. Tell yourself, "Not now." That phrase is powerful. Not now. You are not suppressing thought forever. You are postponing unnecessary mental noise so you can act with clarity. Try this. When you catch yourself overthinking, stand up immediately. Change your physical state. Take 10 slow steps, counting each one. Feel your feet connect with the ground. Keep your gaze steady. This physical reset signals to your nervous system that you are not in danger. Overthinking often masquerades as problem solving, but underneath it is anxiety. Calm the body and the mind follows. Another Stoic reflection to carry with you comes from Marcus Aurelius. Each of us lives only now, this brief instant. That's not meant to create pressure. It's meant to create focus. The only life you ever experience unfolds moment by moment. When you abandon the present, you abandon your life. That realization alone should pull you back. Make it a habit to ask yourself throughout the day, "Where are my feet?" It sounds simple, but it's grounding. If your mind is 10 conversations ahead or replaying something from hours ago, gently return to where your feet are planted. This question collapses time travel. It restores orientation. Overthinking often disguises itself as responsibility. You tell yourself you're just being thorough, just being careful, but careful is different from compulsive. The Stoics valued preparation, yes, but they also valued tranquility. Preparation happens in the present. Compulsive rumination lives in imagined futures. Learn to distinguish them. When you act in the present, even imperfectly, you build momentum. Action dissolves doubt. Tiny steps count. Send the message. Make the decision. Start the task. Adjust as you go. The present moment is forgiving because it allows correction. The imagined future is rigid because it exists only in your head. Commit to this practice. When your thoughts race, slow your breathing. When your mind wanders, anchor your senses. When your attention scatters, narrow it deliberately. When you catch yourself spiraling, label the thought and return to now. Do this repeatedly, calmly, patiently, firmly. The goal is not to eliminate thinking, it is to eliminate useless thinking. The Stoics were not anti-thought, they were anti-chaos. They sought clarity, and clarity lives here, right here, in this breath, in this step. In this word you choose next, stay with it. Number 5, journaling for self-examination. Overthinking thrives in the dark. It multiplies in silence, feeds on vagueness, and grows stronger the longer it stays unchallenged in your head. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology put language to it. They didn't try to out-argue their thoughts in the abstract. They put them on paper. They dragged them into the light. And once a thought is written down, it loses some of its drama. It becomes smaller, manageable, real. That's why journaling, when done intentionally, can interrupt overthinking almost immediately. You don't journal to be poetic, you journal to be honest. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for applause. He wrote to correct himself, to steady himself, to confront his own distortions. When he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he wasn't performing. He was recalibrating. You can do the same. Open a notebook and write exactly what is circling in your mind. Don't edit it, don't polish it, just transfer it. Get it out of your skull and onto the page. The moment it becomes ink instead of noise, you create distance. And distance is clarity. Overthinking feels overwhelming because it's shapeless. Thoughts blur into each other. Fear merges with prediction. Memory blends with imagination. But writing forces structure. It forces sequence. One sentence at a time. That alone slows the mental spiral. When you write, your breathing settles, your nervous system shifts. You move from emotional flooding to deliberate processing. That shift is powerful. Start simple. At the top of the page, write, "What is actually bothering me?" Then answer directly. No metaphors, no philosophy, be specific. If your mind resists, keep writing anyway, even if the first lines feel repetitive, especially then. Repetition reveals the core issue. And once you see it clearly, it stops feeling infinite. Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us but our judgments about them." Journaling exposes those judgments. When you write your fear down, you can examine it. Is it a fact or is it an interpretation? Is it happening now or is it imagined? Ask yourself that directly on the page. Challenge your own conclusions, not aggressively, calmly. Like a mentor correcting a student, you are both the thinker and the examiner. There's a practical rhythm you can adopt. First, empty your mind. Dump the raw thoughts onto the page for 5 uninterrupted minutes. Don't stop your pen. Even if you write, "I don't know what to write," keep going. This clears surface noise. Second, circle the one sentence that carries the most emotional charge. That's the thread. Pull it. Ask beneath it, "Why does this matter so much?" Then answer. Ask again. Go deeper. Within 3 or 4 layers, you'll often find the real concern hiding under the surface narrative. Overthinking shrinks when exposed to precision. Vague dread turns into identifiable concern. Identifiable concern turns into actionable steps or acceptance, and both eliminate mental spinning. You also want to use journaling to separate what you control from what you don't. Draw a vertical line down the page. On the left side, list what is within your control in this situation: your effort, your words, your preparation, your reaction. On the right side, list what is not: other people's opinions, outcomes, timing, past mistakes. Then draw a bold line through the right column. Literally cross it out. That physical act reinforces a Stoic truth. You are not responsible for everything. You are responsible for yourself. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." When you journal, you confront imagination with reason. You see how much of your anxiety is projection. And once you recognize that, you can redirect your energy. Ask yourself on paper, what is the worst realistic outcome? Then follow it with, if that happens, what would I actually do? Write the steps calmly. You will notice something interesting. The unknown loses its grip once it is defined. The mind fears fog. It doesn't fear clarity. Another powerful exercise is the evening review. Before you sleep, sit quietly and write 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? How can I improve tomorrow? Marcus Aurelius practiced this kind of reflection. It wasn't self-punishment, it was self-alignment. When you do this regularly, overthinking decreases because you no longer carry unresolved self-criticism into the next day. You address it, you adjust, you move on, but you must be disciplined. Journaling only works when it becomes a habit, not a last resort. Commit to it daily, even when your mind feels calm. Especially then, you are training mental order. Think of it as strength training for your thoughts. 5 to 10 minutes, no distractions, no phone nearby, just you and the page. When your thoughts begin racing during the day, pause and write 1 page immediately. Don't wait for the perfect time. The act of writing is the intervention. You interrupt the spiral by grounding it physically. You cannot spiral at full speed while writing slowly. The body forces the mind to decelerate. You'll also want to watch your language. Notice exaggerations. Words like always, never, ruined, disaster. Cross them out. Replace them with accurate descriptions. This is Stoic discipline in action. Precision weakens emotional distortion. When you write, this is uncomfortable, not catastrophic. You reshape your internal dialogue. Over time, that becomes automatic. And don't just analyze problems. Journal your principles. Write down the kind of person you are committed to being. Calm, honest, disciplined, courageous. When overthinking starts to question you, return to that list. Ask, how would a calm person handle this? Then follow through. Identity reduces indecision. When you know who you are, choices simplify. You might resist this practice at first. The mind prefers chaos because it's familiar, but stay with it. There's something grounding about ink moving across paper. It's tangible, concrete. It reminds you that thoughts are not mystical forces, they are sentences, and sentences can be examined. The goal isn't to eliminate thinking, it's to eliminate useless thinking. Journaling filters signal from noise. It turns emotional turbulence into structured reflection. It moves you from passive rumination to active reasoning. So start today. Open a notebook. Write the first honest sentence. Don't wait for clarity to arrive before you begin. Clarity arrives because you begin. When you make journaling a daily ritual, you'll notice something subtle but profound. Your thoughts will still appear, but they won't dominate. They won't echo endlessly. You'll meet them, question them, refine them, and release them. That is how Stoics eliminated overthinking long before it had a name. And you can do the same. Number 6, view from above. Overthinking shrinks your world. It pulls the lens in so tight that every minor detail feels enormous. Every possibility feels urgent. Every uncertainty feels threatening. The Stoics had a way of breaking that spell almost instantly. They called it the view from above. It's simple, but it's not shallow. It's a deliberate mental shift that widens your perspective so dramatically that your spiraling thoughts lose their intensity. And when practiced properly, it can feel like someone opened a window in a suffocating room. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. In Meditations, he wrote about viewing human affairs as if from high above, seeing cities, armies, celebrations, arguments, all reduced to movement within a vast whole. When you lift your mind upward, even briefly, the drama that felt suffocating begins to look smaller. Not irrelevant, just smaller. And that shift in scale changes how you feel in your body. Your breath deepens. Your shoulders loosen. The mental noise quiets. Right now, you can do it. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine rising above your current situation. Picture the room you're in from the ceiling. Then imagine the building from the outside. Then the street, the neighborhood, the entire city. Watch it recede. See it as a cluster of lights, movement, patterns. Keep going. Rise above the country, above the continent. See the planet suspended in space, rotating silently. Everything that felt urgent a moment ago is now a tiny flicker on the surface of something vast. And above that, endless darkness scattered with stars. Your problem hasn't disappeared, but its weight has changed. Overthinking feeds on proximity. It needs you close, zoomed in, emotionally entangled. The view from above cuts that attachment. It reminds you that your thoughts are events inside a much larger story. Epictetus taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When you zoom out, you weaken those judgments. You loosen the grip of interpretation. You interrupt the narrative that keeps replaying in your head. You need to practice this deliberately, not just when you're already overwhelmed. Make it a daily discipline. Set aside 5 minutes where you intentionally expand your awareness beyond yourself. Visualize humanity as a whole. Billions of people waking, working, thinking, worrying. Notice how universal struggle is. Notice how common uncertainty is. This doesn't make your experience trivial, it makes it shared. And something shared feels less isolating. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The view from above confronts that imagination. It shows you how much of your mental suffering is constructed inside a narrow frame. When you pull back, you see that life continues unfolding in countless directions at once. Your single thread is part of a larger tapestry. That realization dissolves urgency. But don't just visualize space and planets. Also stretch time. Imagine yourself 1 year from now looking back at this moment. 5 years, 10. Ask yourself calmly, will this thought still matter then? Most of the time, the honest answer is no. Or at least not in the catastrophic way your mind is currently presenting it. This is not denial, it's calibration. Here's a practical exercise. When you catch yourself looping mentally, pause and say internally, zoom out. Make it a cue. Then ask 3 questions. First, how will this look from a distance? Second, how many people on Earth are dealing with something similar right now? Third, will this matter in the long arc of my life? Answer quietly. Don't argue with yourself, just answer. You will feel the emotional charge decrease. The power of the view from above is not that it makes you indifferent, it makes you proportionate. Stoicism is not about coldness, it's about clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly of impermanence, how quickly everything changes, how fleeting praise and criticism are, how temporary all conditions remain. When you internalize that, your mind stops clinging so tightly to every passing thought. And here's something important. Overthinking often feels productive. It disguises itself as preparation. It tells you that if you just analyze a little longer, you'll gain control. But control doesn't come from circling the same thought repeatedly. It comes from decisive perspective. The view from above gives you that perspective. It cuts through repetition. Train yourself to physically embody the shift. When you zoom out mentally, straighten your posture, lift your chin slightly, slow your breathing, let your eyes soften. These small physical adjustments reinforce the mental expansion. Your body and mind work together. When your body signals openness and space, your thoughts follow. There is humility in this practice, and humility is stabilizing. When you see yourself as one human among billions, living on a planet spinning through an enormous universe, your ego relaxes, not in a defeated way, in a grounded way. The need to control every outcome weakens. The fear of minor embarrassment fades. You remember that life is larger than this moment. You must practice this consistently. Not once, not twice. Overthinking is a habit, and habits are dismantled through repetition. Every time you widen your lens instead of narrowing it, you are rewiring your default response. You are teaching your mind to seek scale instead of spirals. There's also a moral dimension to this practice. When you view from above, you are more likely to act according to virtue rather than impulse. The Stoics believed virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, was the only true good. When you zoom out, you stop asking, how does this affect my ego right now? And start asking, what is the wise response in the grand scheme? That shift alone can eliminate hours of mental rumination. Remind yourself daily, you are part of something vast and interconnected. Your role is to act well within your sphere, not to mentally conquer the entire future. Let that responsibility be enough. When you notice your thoughts tightening, deliberately expand them. When you feel trapped in a single narrative, introduce scale. You don't have to solve every possibility. You don't have to anticipate every scenario. You don't have to replay every conversation in your mind. Step back, rise higher, see more, and then breathe. The mind that learns to zoom out becomes resilient. It stops mistaking small disturbances for existential threats. It stops inflating uncertainty into catastrophe. It begins to operate from clarity rather than compulsion. So practice the view from above until it becomes second nature. Make zoom out your quiet mantra. Let perspective become your reflex. Overthinking thrives in tight spaces. Give yourself sky. Number 7, emotional labeling. Overthinking feeds on vagueness. It thrives in the fog. When your mind spins, it's usually because something feels off but you haven't named it. It's just a blur of sensation, tightness in your chest, heat in your face, restless mental loops that won't settle. The Stoics understood that what is undefined feels overwhelming, and what is named becomes manageable. Emotional labeling is deceptively simple, yet it slices through rumination like a blade. You stop saying, everything is a mess, and instead you say, this is frustration, or this is fear, or even more precisely, this is disappointment. And the moment you do that, something shifts. The storm shrinks to a cloud. You need to understand this. Your brain is trying to protect you when it overthinks. It scans for threats, rehearses possibilities, replays conversations. But when you don't clearly identify the emotion underneath, your mind keeps searching for a solution to a problem it hasn't defined. That's why it doesn't stop, so give it clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Notice that word, estimate. Your interpretation. Emotional labeling forces you to see the estimate clearly. It separates the event from your reaction. And that separation gives you power. When you feel the spiral beginning, pause, don't argue with your thoughts. Don't try to think your way out of thinking. Instead, slow down your breathing and ask yourself one question. What am I actually feeling right now? Not what happened, not what might happen, just what you are feeling. Sit with it for a few seconds. If your first answer is vague, I feel bad or I feel stressed, dig deeper. Stress is often a mask. What is underneath? Anxiety, embarrassment, anger. Uncertainty. Keep refining the word until it fits. The more specific you get, the more control you gain. Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Emotional labeling is exactly that. Your emotion is within your awareness, the external trigger often is not. So focus on what you can govern, your recognition of the internal state. Say it quietly in your mind. This is anxiety. This is jealousy. This is impatience. Don't dramatize it. Don't judge it. Just name it like a scientist observing a reaction in a lab. You are not the emotion. You are the observer of it. That distinction is everything. Overthinking loses momentum when you stop blending with your feelings. When you say, I am anxious, it feels like identity. When you say, I am experiencing anxiety, it feels temporary. Subtle difference. Massive impact. Practice this linguistic shift deliberately. Add the phrase, I notice, before your emotion. I notice irritation. I notice fear. That tiny adjustment builds psychological distance, and distance cools intensity. You might resist this at first. It can feel too simple to be effective, but that's exactly why it works. The Stoics believed clarity dismantles chaos. Seneca wrote, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Emotional labeling pulls you out of imagination and into the present sensation. It interrupts the narrative and redirects you to the fact. The fact is not that everything is collapsing. The fact is that you are feeling uncertainty. That's it. Once named, it becomes contained. Make this a daily drill, not just a rescue tactic. Throughout your day, check in with yourself at random moments. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Even if it's neutral, even if it's calm, especially then. The more fluent you become in identifying subtle emotional shifts, the less likely they are to ambush you. You build emotional vocabulary, and vocabulary gives structure. Structure reduces noise. There's another layer to this practice. Precision reduces exaggeration. When you fail to label emotions, your mind fills in the gaps with catastrophic stories. But when you identify the exact feeling, you realize it's rarely as dramatic as your thoughts make it seem. Discomfort becomes manageable when it has a name. Fear shrinks when exposed to light. And you begin to notice a pattern. Most emotions crest and fall if you don't feed them. So here's an exercise. The next time you catch yourself replaying a thought for the third time, stop. Close your eyes for 10 seconds. Take one slow inhale, then a longer exhale. Then say in a calm internal voice, the dominant emotion right now is, and fill in the blank. Don't rush the answer, let it surface. Once you name it, rate its intensity from 1 to 10. This anchors it. Now ask yourself, is this emotion within my control, or is it a reaction to something outside my control? That question alone will redirect your focus. If it's outside your control, remind yourself of the Stoic dichotomy. Release what isn't yours to manage. If it's inside your control, like guilt from your own action, then choose one corrective step and take it. Action dissolves rumination. Another powerful variation is writing the emotion down. Not a full journal entry, just the word. Seeing it in ink makes it concrete. When emotions remain abstract, they feel infinite. When written, they become defined. And defined things can be addressed. You don't need pages of analysis. Just the label. Understand something deeper here. Emotional labeling isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about respecting it enough to identify it accurately. The Stoics didn't preach numbness, they practiced discernment. Marcus Aurelius constantly examined his own reactions in his meditations. He would ask himself why he felt disturbed and then break it down rationally. You can do the same. Become curious about your reactions rather than intimidated by them. And don't expect instant perfection. Your mind has practiced overthinking for years. It won't surrender in a day. But each time you label instead of spiral, you weaken the old habit. You're rewiring your response pattern. Over time, you'll notice something subtle but profound. The gap between emotion and rumination widens. You feel something, you name it, and instead of being dragged into a maze of hypothetical outcomes, you return to the present. That's the key, presence. Overthinking lives in the future or the past. Emotional labeling brings you back to now. It asks, what is happening inside me at this exact moment? And when you answer honestly, the mind settles. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped fighting a shadow. So practice it, relentlessly, calmly, without drama. Build the reflex of naming instead of narrating. Replace "why is this happening?" with "what am I feeling?" Replace "what if?" with "this is fear." And then breathe. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are the one who can observe both. And once you truly grasp that, overthinking doesn't stand a chance. Number 8, memento mori. Memento mori, remember that you will die. At first glance, it sounds heavy, almost morbid. Your mind might resist it, but stay with it. This single Stoic practice has the power to cut through overthinking faster than almost anything else because it slices straight to what actually matters. When you remember your time is limited, your mental noise begins to look small. Petty worries shrink. Imagined catastrophes lose their drama. You see clearly, and clarity quiets the mind. Overthinking thrives on the illusion of endless tomorrows. It whispers, "You have time to replay this conversation another 100 times. You have time to analyze every angle. You have time to fear every possible outcome." But memento mori interrupts that illusion. It leans in and says, "No, you don't." Not in a panicked way, not in a frantic, desperate way, calmly, firmly, you don't have forever. And that truth is not meant to scare you, it's meant to focus you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Read that slowly. Let it land. If you could leave life right now, would this spiral of overanalysis deserve your energy? Would this imagined embarrassment matter? Would this hypothetical future scenario be worth sacrificing your present peace? When you hold your mortality in view, you stop treating every minor issue like a life or death crisis. Ironically, remembering death brings your nervous system back to life. You overthink because your mind is trying to control the uncontrollable. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants protection from every possible mistake. But memento mori teaches you that control was always partial, temporary, fragile. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Overthinking is one of the most subtle forms of waste. Hours lost to rehearsing conversations that may never happen. Energy drained by worrying about outcomes you cannot command. When you remember that your days are numbered, wasting them on mental loops feels almost absurd. So here's what you do. Each morning before you reach for distraction, pause, sit upright, take one slow breath, and say to yourself quietly but directly, "I will not live forever." Don't dramatize it. Don't rush past it. Let the sentence settle into your bones. Feel the weight of it, but also the sharpness. Then follow it with a question. Given that, what deserves my attention today? This question alone will begin to reorganize your priorities. Suddenly, clarity emerges. The trivial fades. The essential remains. Overthinking often comes from fear of judgment or failure. You imagine how others might perceive you. You replay your mistakes. You forecast rejection, but step back. Everyone you fear disappointing is mortal too. Everyone judging you is temporary. Their opinions will vanish in time just as yours will. This isn't nihilism, it's perspective. Epictetus said, "You are a little soul carrying around a corpse." Stark, yes, but grounding. You are human, fragile, passing through. Why then give so much power to fleeting impressions? When you practice memento mori consistently, something shifts. You begin to act more decisively, not recklessly, decisively, because you understand that hesitation, when rooted in fear, is often just disguised avoidance. You stop polishing decisions endlessly. You choose, you move, you adjust if needed. The fear of making the wrong choice weakens because you see the bigger frame. Life is finite. Perfection is irrelevant. Progress is enough. Try this exercise when you feel yourself spiraling into analysis paralysis. Close your eyes. Imagine your life as a finite line, not an endless horizon. Visualize it stretching from beginning to end. You are somewhere on that line right now. You don't know how far from the end, but you know there is one. Now ask yourself, is this thought worthy of the limited space I have left? Be honest. Most of the time, the answer will be no. And when it is, release it, gently but firmly. Redirect your attention to what you can actually do in this moment. There is a quiet urgency in memento mori, but it is not frantic. It is clean. It strips away indulgent rumination. When you catch yourself replaying a minor mistake, remind yourself, if today were my last, would I spend it replaying this? That question has force. Use it, not to pressure yourself, but to free yourself. You are not here to be flawless. You are here to live deliberately. Another practice, write your own brief mortality reminder. Just a few lines. Keep it simple, something like, my time is limited, my energy is precious, I choose to spend it wisely. Read it daily, especially when your thoughts start racing in circles. Over time, this repetition conditions your mind. It builds a reflex. Instead of spiraling, you zoom out. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to become gloomy. They did it to become awake. When you remember the temporary nature of everything, gratitude sharpens. Presence deepens, decisions simplify. You stop postponing meaningful action because you realize postponement is not guaranteed. While we are postponing, life speeds by, Seneca warned. Let that stir you not into anxiety but into intention. And notice this, memento mori doesn't just eliminate overthinking about the future. It softens regret about the past. The past is fixed, gone, irretrievable. Spending your finite time reliving it is like pouring water into sand. Instead, acknowledge it, extract the lesson, and return to the present. The present is the only slice of time you can shape. Marcus Aurelius urged himself, confine yourself to the present. That confinement is liberation. Stay here, act here, breathe here. You may find resistance at first. The mind prefers distraction to existential reflection, but lean into it gently. This practice strengthens you. It makes your thinking sharper, not darker. It reduces noise because it clarifies stakes. Most of what you obsess over simply does not matter in the grand arc of a finite life. So the next time your thoughts begin looping, stop. Take one breath. Say, I will die. Not dramatically, simply. Then follow it with, so I will live now. Feel the shift. Feel how quickly your mind reorganizes. The trivial loses volume. The essential gains it. You don't have endless time to debate every move. You don't have infinite days to fear imaginary outcomes. You have this moment, this breath, this decision. Let that be enough. Remembering death is not about the end. It is about intensity of presence. It is about stripping away the unnecessary so you can stand firmly in what is real. Overthinking dissolves when confronted with mortality because mortality demands sincerity. It demands focus. It demands that you choose what truly deserves your mind. So practice memento mori, daily, calmly, without drama. Let it anchor you. Let it steady you. Let it cut through the fog of excessive thought. and then move forward clear, deliberate, alive. If overthinking has been running your mind in circles, remember this. Clarity isn't found by thinking more, it's found by thinking better. The Stoics didn't eliminate anxiety by escaping life, but by mastering their inner world. And every practice you just learned today is a tool you can use right now in real situations when your mind starts to spiral. You don't need to apply all 8 at once. Start with 1. Practice it daily. Let it sharpen your focus, calm your emotions, and return your power to where it belongs, within you. If this video gave you even a moment of mental clarity, make sure you like it, subscribe, and share it with someone who overthinks in silence. And remember, peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's control in the middle of it.